Greetings, we are members of the Comprehensive Integrated Three-Tiered Model of Prevention research team. We're excited to introduce you to the Ci3T Model of Prevention in this presentation. The Ci3T Model of Prevention is built by a school leadership team based on the needs of the students they serve and in the context of their specific school. In this presentation, various members of the Ci3T research team will talk about academic, behavioral, and social skill components of the Ci3T model, alongside the importance of measurement for accurately detecting students who may need additional instruction or supports.
As we introduce this three-tiered models of prevention, you can think about Ci3T as a blueprint for the school. In essence, the Ci3T implementation manual each school creates becomes the document that details all the availabilities for students across academic, social, and behavioral domains. It also contains a plan of what's available at Tier 2 or secondary prevention for just some students. These are low-intensity supports intended to help students who may need some extra support. The Ci3T implementation manual also includes plans for Tier 3 supports, again, evidence-based practices for just a few students that have the most intensive intervention needs. Ci3T is a framework for organizing everything that's available and happening at a school, including enrichment opportunities as well as remediation efforts. Our research team has been in education for many years and have seen over time new things come in and other things go out. And essentially, the Ci3T model of prevention is a framework that the school or district can use to organize everything that's taking place as new initiatives come and go. The decisions of what to include support schools and district goals of making sure evidence-based practices, strategies, and programs are in place at each level of prevention, and that we are incorporating a data-driven approach to support the multiple needs of all students. And in this way, general and special educators can collaborate efficiently and effectively. This allows schools to both prevent the development of learning and behavior problems from occurring, and then responding efficiently and effectively when problems do occur.
In the past, you may have heard about primary, secondary, and tertiary supports, and some of you have heard the terms Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Those are essentially interchangeable terms. This model is built by a school site Ci3T leadership team who are representative of the faculty and staff. They will build the school's Ci3T implementation manual over the course of a school year with feedback from all faculty and staff. What's unique about Ci3T is that it attends to students' development in academic, behavioral, and social-emotional learning domains. The Ci3T leadership team develops a primary prevention, or Tier 1 plan, focused on these three domains. For academics, the overarching goal is to make sure that all students have access to high-quality instruction in targeted academic areas. The Ci3T leadership team also makes decisions about how to better meet students' social skill needs so they can best access and engage in productive learning opportunities with their peers. Many schools have programs like bullying prevention, character development, or social skills, or a social-emotional learning program. The intent behind curriculum brought into the school is to make sure that we have identified explicit targets or goals of how we want students to behave in a way that supports instruction. So there are instructional programs and curriculum goals for academics in social skills and academic domains.
And then there's positive behavior interventions and supports. PBIS is the behavioral framework within the Ci3T model. And that's intended to help them gain the instructional time that they need by creating a school-wide set of expectations with opportunities to practice and receive feedback and reinforcement for meeting those expectations. Each school Ci3T leadership team, based on all the data faculty and staff provide by completing the school-wide expectation survey for specific settings, will construct a school-wide matrix, and that matrix will reflect the opinions of all the adults in the school that provided this input so that they can see in a school what students need to know to be most successful in each of those classroom and non-instructional areas like hallways, buses, and cafeteria. This primary prevention is available to every single student just by virtue of attending school. And then the intent is to figure out which students may need additional supports in the form of research-based Tier 2 or secondary prevention efforts. And these are intended for smaller groups of students. And these lower intensity strategies include things like behavior contracts, self-monitoring, reading groups, anger management groups. The goal is to reserve tertiary or Tier 3 supports, which is not special education, but supports that are the most intensive for students with the greatest intervention needs. And examples might include really intensive reading interventions or functional assessment-based interventions.
The Ci3T model, as mentioned, integrates academic, behavioral, and social domains. For the academic piece, the goal is that all students in the whole district will have coordinated instruction both within and across grade levels. In many states, this is linked to the Common Core state or district standards, anchored to college and career readiness standards. We have learned over the past several years that with response to intervention models, the benefit is of close monitoring of student performance, including benchmarking student progress in core skill areas 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. This allows us to use those data to quickly determine which students may need extra support in the form of Tier 2 or Tier 3 supports. Then, students who receive those additional supports have progress monitored to see if the selected strategy or intervention is sufficient to meet their learning needs. Likewise, work in the social domain centers around the use of an evidence-based social skill, social-emotional learning, or character development program. As part of the Ci3T building process, leadership team members and district leaders will review curriculum using clear guidelines to inform decisions. For example, teams review the evidence regarding student outcomes of various programs. Teams investigate whether these outcomes align with the school's desired outcomes, goals, and areas of needs. Does the district or school have the resources to purchase the curriculum and professional learning, and whether that can be provided in a sustainable way?
Ci3T does not endorse any specific social skills program. The programs listed here are only examples, and each Ci3T leadership team selects a program based on the values and the culture of their community and according to their school data informed by district decision making. We also want to make sure that anything that schools bring into their building has a plan for students who will need additional support beyond Tier 1 efforts. And for anyone who has ever worn spandex, we know that one size absolutely does not fit all. So when the Ci3T leadership team selects and adopts the social skills program, they need to make sure that there is a plan for how to support students who need more than what is typically offered at Tier 1. We also want to make sure that when a program is adopted, there's an actionable plan for monitoring implementation, also referred to as treatment integrity. And this is providing a school information on the extent to which students have access to the learning that is promised in the Tier 1 experience. In other words, are the lessons being taught? Do all students have the opportunity to access that instruction? In terms of establishing the behavioral component or school-wide PBIS, this is not a curriculum, but a framework. And through the great lessons learned about PBIS, we know that the intent is to level the playing field for all students and to provide them with clearly defined expectations regarding what is expected of them across all key settings in elementary, middle, or high schools. And then just like we teach academic and social skills, we will teach these expectations to students, and we'll give everybody an opportunity to practice and receive feedback and reinforcement for meeting these expectations. And this is critical that we empower every adult in the building to be someone who can deliver the feedback and the acknowledgement. Then it's not just the teachers, but it's all staff, including paraprofessionals, administrators, cafeteria workers, custodians, office staff, substitutes, everyone. And again, we want to make sure that every adult is on the same page as what is expected, and then we want to acknowledge students for meeting those behavioral expectations.
A vital component of the building process is unique to Ci3T is that it's a data-informed approach to establishing school-wide expectations. Using input from all faculty and staff, gathered from the school-wide expectation survey for specific settings, Ci3T leadership teams design an expectation matrix that looks like this, which is going to establish, clarify, and define expectations in key areas, whether it's in an elementary school setting or in a middle or high school setting. And thus, these integrated academic, behavioral, and social efforts form the base of the Ci3T model of prevention. Next, we need to consider how we can respond to students who may need additional supports across any of these 3 domains.
To accurately detect who needs more in which areas, the school site Ci3T leadership team will identify key variables to inform decision making. So for example, if you're using office discipline referral data to make decisions about who needs more, you'll want to make certain that you're using a system, such as Swiss, that allows you to collect information accurately and reliably. We encourage schools to consider using data that are typically not considered, such as visits to the nurse's office and attendance data. School is 100% one of those must be present to win games. So if you have students who are not regular attenders, we need to make sure that we first support them in getting to school and having good attendance, because we don't want to suggest to their parents that they are not responding to what's in place if they're not there to get what's in place. Another thing that may be novel to schools is the introduction of behavior screenings, which are very similar to academic screenings that schools may already have in place. And just like academic screening, behavior screenings take place 3 times a year: fall, winter, and spring, with the first time point for behavior screenings being 4 to 6 weeks after the school year begins. And then this information is used to obtain essentially snapshots in time as to how a school is progressing. And it also can lead to data-informed decision-making as to which students or teachers might need extra support.
These are data from a middle school where they've been doing behavior screenings for over a decade, since 2004. You can see over time that the percentage of students in the low-risk category has increased, which means they saw improvements in student behavior over that period of time. In the fall of 2011, it makes it much more clear here who may need Tier 3 support and who may need Tier 2 support. But again, the screening data are analyzed with other data collected as part of regular school practices, which may include office discipline referrals, nurse visits, or attendance data. To support decisions about which assessments to bring into schools and how to use them, Ci3T leadership teams, as well as district Ci3T leadership teams, make an at-a-glance assessment schedule. This supports transparency and allows everyone to see what data are available and when for use in data-informed decision-making, such as connecting students to Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports.
When looking at your Tier 2 supports, it's also referred to as our secondary prevention efforts. We again want to create an opportunity where students with data and identified needs can access these evidence-based practices in an efficient way. The Ci3T leadership team works with others in the school and districts to make transparent these extra supports in the buildings by creating these intervention grids, which lists all available offerings. Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention grids are part of the Ci3T blueprint and have explicit criteria on how students will be assisted if they have additional needs. In other words, how do I connect these students to support such as behavior contracts, self-monitoring efforts, check-in, check-out, reading groups. I might use instructional choice, other low-intensity supports as well. The goal is to make sure that everybody, teachers, peers, and students have equal access to this information. So rather than relying on teacher nomination or teacher referral, the intent with these grids is to make certain that decisions are driven by data, creating equitable access for students to access these additional supports. Teachers and other educators learn how to use academic and behavior screening together in tandem to determine which students may benefit from these extra supports. And once students do access these extra supports, we want to make sure that the data are collected to not only see how students are doing, but whether or not the supports are implemented with integrity and what people think about the goals and the procedures and the outcomes, the social validity. And we want to make sure that these resources are not becoming bottlenecks so that kids are checking into these interventions and never leaving. So we want to have a clear plan as when to conclude these interventions. Ci3T leadership teams start by defining the support, and remember the support is not a person, it's what the person does. And they use school-wide data to establish entry criteria to make decisions about for whom this might be a good idea. They will build mechanisms for monitoring student performance, the degree to which it's implemented, and stakeholders' views, and also determine the exit criteria.
Exit criteria guide educators in determining when additional supports are needed, such as different or additional Tier 2 supports, a Tier 3 support, or if a student is successful and ready to continue with primary prevention alone. A key part is that all secondary and tertiary prevention efforts in a school building are additive in nature. Ci3T leadership teams clarify that students, for example, are not removed from core reading time to improve their reading with extra supports. They become additional supports. For example, one evidence-based Tier 3 support is functional assessment-based intervention, which is a highly effective procedure for promoting pro-social behavior. This would not be done instead of your school-wide plan, but in addition to that plan. We do, though, want to reserve these intensive supports for students with the greatest need, because to collect data like these and to make decisions about how well these targeted behaviors are improving or not improving, we want to make sure first that we've begun with less intensive approaches such as those listed for Tier 2 supports like self-monitoring or behavior contracts. This will help us be efficient with our time and resources.
Some additional benefits of the Ci3T model of prevention include a mechanism for coordinating targeted areas such as academic content, social skills, and positive behavior interventions and supports. If you think about this from a district perspective, if you had a clearly defined Ci3T model for elementary, middle, and high schools in your district, the academic behavior and social skills instruction and additional supports would become completely transparent to teachers and to families and to students. Then when students graduate from one school level, like elementary, moving to middle, or if rezoning was to reoccur or if feeder patterns change, it becomes much easier to support those transitions because we can explicitly teach what might be different at schools within the district. It also provides the potential for enormous benefits to facilitate implementation of systematic school-wide support. For example, when a behavior specialist comes to a school to support a student with Tier 3 needs, that person can say, hey, let's look to see what you've already attempted at Tier 1 and what your fidelity looks like and what have you tried at Tier 2. So they're going to have access to these data to see how students have responded to what you've already attempted. It also provides a very nice way to communicate with parents, then strengthen that homeschool partnership, because this is not a secret, but a blueprint for the school, readily available to not only school employees, but also parent communities to make sure that everyone is doing the best possible job we can to support all students. Thank you very much for listening today. We are excited that you're exploring Ci3T and hope you enjoyed learning more about our Ci3T professional learning series.